Okay, I wanted to talk for a couple of minutes today about the Constitution of the United States of America, legal fictions, and some things you may not know, um, but I think should be discussed. And I research this stuff often. And you hear people like Alex Jones, and you know, the guy's a great guy, and I don't really find any fault in him, but it's kind of a disservice to people by telling them that, hey, the Constitution is something that pertains to me as an individual, when it doesn't. It's true, it's a contract, and there's court cases that have gone through this, and it doesn't apply to average people. It applies to it's a contract between the states and the Crown Corporation in Washington D.C. called the United States of America. The United States of America is a foreign-owned, run-for-profit corporation, and you can look it up on Dun and Bradstreet. They're not hiding it; it's right there in your face. So, one thing I want to talk about is we're no longer under the original 1789 Constitution, which was the Constitution for the United States of America. It was destroyed by stealth. When the Act of 1871 was treasonously passed by a criminal Congress, and this all happened after the Civil War. But if you look into the Civil War, it really wasn't about slavery, because slavery was already on its way out through international treaties and through by the advent of the what do you call it, the harvester machines were being built now, so they didn't need really slaves for the fields as much, and the slave owners couldn't afford to house, feed, and clothe all their slaves. So it was on its way out, but it was really about money because, well, I get into that, but the corporation known as the United States of America and the District of Columbia is and always has been beholden to England's bankers. It's a separate city-state, just like the Vatican and the inner part of London, the inner city of London. If you haven't seen it already, go on YouTube and see the video. Oh gosh, what's it called? Empire of the Rings, I think it's called. Anyway, so after the Civil War, America was in deep financial trouble, as she always has been. And everybody keeps saying, I want my country back. This country has always been in a depression and always been at war. Always. And when there isn't a war, they're figuring out how to start another war. So after the Civil War, America was in deep financial trouble. Essentially, it was bankrupt. So on February 21st, 1871, the 41st Congress, with no authority to do this, creates a separate form of government for the District of Columbia, which is Washington, D.C., for the area 10 square miles that it's situated in. So just know that Washington, the District of Columbia, is sitting inside what we know as the America, the landmass, but it's its own city-state. It has nothing to do with the states themselves. It's just that the states have contracted with the international corporation to do business. That's basically it, and they're bankrupt. But that's the key strategy is to bankrupt everybody, and then you go under the yoke of the international bankers, who are intent in gaining a stranglehold on the coffers and the neck of America. Anyway, so Congress cut a deal with these international bankers, specifically the Rothschilds of London, to incur a debt to said bankers, because the bankers were not about to lend money to a floundering nation without serious stipulations, and they devised a way to get their foot in the door of the United States. But if you go back before the Act of 1871, it's always had to borrow money from these international bankers. See, people don't think when they say, like, oh, the national debt, we owe the national debt. Well, what is it? Who do we borrow the money from? What's the interest rate? What are they using it for? These are questions that I ask, and All Americans should ask. Find out how this stuff works. So anyway, the international bankers, they weren't just about ready to, just lend money to anybody. They want collateral. They want you to put up stuff. And they've put up everything. You can go into that, but anything you register with the government, your car, your kids, your house, your business, they own it all. You own absolutely nothing. If you think you own your house, stop paying the property tax, and in about 6 months they'll stick a foreclosure. I mean, they'll come and take your house. They'll kick you out. Anyway, the Act of 1871, Washington, D.C., and then eventually all of the other states became a corporation that was owned by foreign interests and beholden to the bankers. It then began operating via private international law. America then had a new illegal constitution called the Constitution of the United States of America, all uppercase letters. And it used to be the Constitution for the United States of America. There's two different ones. Actually, now, if you research it, they only use a couple of the amendments of the Constitution because in their corporate charter. And you'll notice a couple of years ago, they get up and they read the Constitution, and they have to do that every 20 years or so to get it into get it recorded into the corporate charter minutes. But they don't read all the amendments, and but definitely the 14th, 15th, and 16th, and on up are the ones those amendments that were enacted right around the time of the Civil War, after the Civil War. So the District of Columbia then became incorporated government. It's no longer a republic. The new Constitution is a separate and illegal document that benefits corporations, not us. So, and over the decades, and again by stealth with the complicity of Congress, could this have been done? Now, what Congress is there for, people think that's why Congress has such a low rating. That has nothing to do with like your rights or doing anything for you. It's all corporate business. And I can explain it to you how the United States public is we're the lenders. We're actually in charge of all the money because it's been put into trust, and we're the signatories for the trust. That's why they charge you. That's why in Congress they make bills, and the main thing they try to do is get you in prison. And I won't go into that right now, but that's the big money maker. That's why there's more people in prison in this country than any other country in the world combined. For statutes and codes, statutes are bonds, and when you violate a code or a statute, that code or statute is bonded. The charge is bonded, and they take you into their maritime admiralty courts. And you plead not guilty, which dishonors the court, and you're guilty from the get-go. And that doesn't mean you did anything, because the facts are the furthest thing on the minds of these people. It's all about money. So when you go into a court, I'm all over the map here, but when you go into the court, they just want you to pay. That's all it's about. That's why murder goes for $4 million. There's always a monetary value to these charges. It's not about, hey, I committed murder. No, it's $4 million. We want the $4 million. You can bond out. It's all about bonds, and if you agree to pay the charges, then in the democracy you can go to prison to pay your debt, and then they'll pimp you out while you're in there making slave goods, and that's actually slavery is actually legal in the United States now. And that's what the war on drugs is all about. And you can talk about this stuff for hours, but the whole thing is just it's a giant matrix of craziness. So anyway, in 1913, the Fraudulent Federal Reserve Act was passed, again putting our finances into the hands of private bankers. All present and succeeding debts of the United States Treasury were assumed by the Federal Reserve, a municipal corporation. Remember, the Federal Reserve is a private banking consortium. and it has been in business for about 100 years now, and this whole time they've been stealing from us. And how do they steal? Well, war is the big one. What else? 1933 Federal Reserve notes, basically paper money with no intrinsic worth, no longer backed by gold, just backed by the credit of the nation. What happens when the nation is bankrupt, as it is now? Essentially, this means the Congress does not work for us, so-called public officials, work for the United States. You understand how that works? Because the corporation is bankrupt, the whole thing of the Congress and everything is about paying back the bankers. And how are we going to do that? And they call them lawmakers. 75% of them are bar attorneys, which is the bar, their legal system comes out of the inner city of London, the Temple Bar, and they're set up there. This is an ancient system to administer for the bankruptcy. So when they enact new laws, say they make a law saying, just hypothetically, okay, you can't, you can't fart on a street corner, and Congress will vote on that, and they'll go, okay, they pass the law, and then the bill, and they figure, well, we need to get a certain amount of people charged with this new law. And then they do the actuaries, and they know approximately how many people they're probably going to get to charge for the new law, and that statute is bonded, and they actually sell that on the international stock market. It's crazy. So what else? The United States is under martial law, and it always has been. People going, oh, they're going to enact martial law. Look around, people. You are under martial law or martial rule. Since the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln instituted martial rule during the Civil War. Look it up on the internet. It's called the Lieber Code, or General Orders 100. And look it up. It's right there. You'll see your government right there. Anyway, so Lincoln enacted that. However, he was assassinated, and it was never rescinded. So this is in part why we have a centuries-long scenario of perpetual wars, one war after another, to feed the out-of-control greed of the bankers, while millions of people lost their lives in wars deliberately created by the corporations and the elites for profits on both sides. They fund both sides, and I can't believe people don't see it. But the same thing that happened in this country originally, they talk about the Revolutionary War, is what they do in all these wars that they're doing in these other countries now. Like, for example, Egypt. I mean, I don't know everything what's going on in Egypt, but what they do is they foment animosity, but with a group to fight the government, and then they fund both sides of it, and it's problem, reaction, solution. So you get what you want in the middle. So if what you want is to set up a government that is going to borrow money from these international bankers so they can bankrupt you and put the whole country into debt and steal everything you have, you got to foment, and they make money all up and down every which way but loose. It's pretty incredible. So same thing happened here. I mean, people are like, we won our independence. We didn't win nothing. I don't think they did. I mean, come on, the British troops didn't leave till like 1796 or something. I could be wrong, but it's like they didn't even leave, man. And then they go to France to sign the Treaty of Peace, where he says right in there that that the king is like the prince of the United States and sole treasurer for the Vatican. Read it. Read the Treaty of Peace. People don't read this shit. They don't know. They don't care. Anyway, so let's talk about your Social Security number. It's the 9-digit number created in 1936, supposedly to track your earnings and benefits. It does far more than that. It's another excise tax imposed on income, in addition to other taxes. And according to the Internal Revenue Code, has nothing to do with insurance. Now you can look on my blog, and I have it on there that the Queen of England has amended our Social Security payments. She actually gets a part of that kickback to her, and that goes back to because the king funded the excursion over here to settle and set up the colonies here, and so by law, by treaty, he's entitled to a certain portion of that. So anyway, the Social Security number belongs to the United States Inc. government, and your name in all capital letters is included. This makes you a U.S. corporate citizen, small c. This number means you declare yourself to be a public stock on the U.S. Inc. government, of the U.S. government corporation, and by doing so, we become collateral for the U.S. To acquire debt. And I'm sure that's something you never learned in the classroom. And anyway, the number on your birth certificate. And you have to remember now we are under Admiralty law, the law of the seas. The Uniform Commercial Code is the law of business. It's the Bible of business over the earth. It coordinates and harmonizes all 50 states' sales. The code is based on ancient Vatican canon law, going back to the days of the Caesars in Rome, and the Roman canon law. The Roman Empire established that all nations worked on a level playing field. These regulations still exist under the Roman Catholic Church and the Uniform Commercial Code. So it's banking law, and that's what rules everything. Like if you go into a court and say, hey, I had my Fifth Amendment, my Second Amendment, or my Fourth Amendment violated, just like this guy Jesse Ventura, he filed a suit in court stating a violation of his Fourth Amendment when he got felt up by the TSA at an airport, and the judge threw it out because the Constitution doesn't apply to men and women, us, U.S. citizens. And I hope people can understand that. Bill of Rights, none of it. You have certain benefits and privileges as a United States citizen, that's it. They own you. And their whole thing is keeping you dumbed down so you don't learn any of this stuff. They want you to be like, oh, my Constitution, look what they're doing, because if you really knew what was going on, then you'd have to do something. Anyway, so birth registration or certificate started in 1921 under the Federal Shepherd Town and Maternity Act. It was another bill of goods sold to the duped and uninformed public, who were then told it would reduce infant mortality, protect the health of mothers and infants, and for other purposes. So everybody has their babies in hospitals now, and they give you your Social Security number for the kid right away, like at the hospital. And the hospital gets something like a $3,000 stipend for doing that. Anyway, so at the birth, parents don't get an original birth certificate. They get a copy, which is written on bank note paper that is owned by the British Crown. Even for Americans, the corporation of the United States is registered at the inner city of London and a Roman enclave of the Vatican. If you go back and look at all the papal bulls, the Pope, and this has never been challenged by any corporation or government, the Pope claims he's the vicar of Christ, and as the vicar of Christ, he owns the whole world, all the property of the state, and that's still today. They have a allodial title to everything. That's why it's called the Holy See, and everything's basically up underwater, so they can run their admiralty schemes. So your birth certificate is the way your parents register with the government corporation. And since 1933, when the U.S. went bankrupt, our birth and marriage certificates are considered pledge of the people as collateral against those loans and municipal bonds taken out with the Federal Reserve banks. So your birth certificate is actually out floating around making money as collateral for a loan on something. And you used to be able to go on to fidelity.com and look up your birth certificate number. But what they do now is they pool them together in mutual funds. I call them human growth funds, as far as I can get. But they really have kind of hidden it since people have started looking into it. So your number is traded regularly on the stock market. That's why if you call a company to see if they're hiring, you have to go through a division known as human resources. The people are resources of the government. The government owns everything. That's why when you go get a job at Joe's liquor store or down the car dealership or wherever, you have to follow your government paperwork because you're working for the government. Whether you think so or not, you're not working for. Bill down up the manager there telling you what to do, but ultimately you're working for the government. Anyway, so those are a couple things. If you go to my blog at stopthepirates.blogspot.com, I've been studying this information for about 8 years now, and I've compiled a massive amount of information that's available. This is my job. It's what I do. I investigate this stuff, and I'm working to find remedies, and there are remedies out there, and I can't really go into it here, but just know that we are the creditors for the United States Corporation, because when they started all this stuff with the Act of 1871, they put all of our property and all of our gold and everything that we have in this country into a trust, and we're the signatories for the trust. That's why when a cop comes to you with a ticket, you're a bonded debt slave, right? Your corporation has been bonded, just like the cop is bonded. Everything is bonded. So if a cop beats you up, you would go after the company that bonded him, right? To get your remedy, and then he wouldn't be a cop anymore. But that's why they're coming to you. So you broke their corporate code and statute, which is set up to pay back for the international bankruptcy of the corporation that you're the signatory for. So they have to come to you to get the money. So that's why they set up these laws, these codes and statutes, is to get the money. That's what the Patriot Act is about, 1 and 2 and all that stuff. It's not about international terrorists, it's about you. And another thing too is when you die or you're killed, it eliminates your portion of the debt. I think every American right now is, with the 6 or 7 trillion that's on the books that we owe to the corporation owes to the international bankers. Every single individual U.S. citizen owes like 120 grand. Now, when you die, the 120 grand is wiped off the books. Plus, they have a insurance policy on your corporation, and who knows how much that is. It's probably like 10 million. Every soldier that gets killed in war, there's like a $250 million life insurance policy that they don't tell you about. And they might give the family 20 grand or something when your kid dies over there in their war. Anyway, so you're the signatory for all the money. And your signature is the most powerful thing that you own. So be careful what you sign. Anyway, I guess that's it. Kind of rambling today, but go to stopthepirates.blogspot.com. Thanks.